Paranormal Punches is part of the Podbelly Network. Go to podbelly.com for more great podcasts.
Hey, y'all. This is Frank the Bigfoot, and you're listening to the Paranormal Punchers.
Hey, friends. Welcome to a bonus episode of Paranormal Punchers. I'm Mark.
I'm Alicia.
And our special guest is comic book writer Ray Ramos. I messed it up, didn't I? I almost had it, Ray.
That was good. That was on point. You're good.
Man, I can't believe I got the R to roll properly.
Yeah.
Ray, thank you for spending time with us today. And you have a new book that I'm so excited about because it fits right in with everything I love. It's called Cryptidnals.
Yes, sir. That's the new book that's coming out. Hopefully sooner than later. Right now, we have an estimated date of December to release it, but we're trying to push it to Halloween because it would fit perfectly. But yes, it's called The Cryptidnals.
Okay.
Right, and we were just discussing before we hit record that Cryptidnals, the name of the comic book, is a mashup of cryptids and criminals.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that leads right into kind of the concept, the plot of the book.
A little bit, yes, it does. These cryptids that we've loved for all this time, they've been treated like criminals by society. They've always been, all those things are evil. They live in the woods. They serve no purpose other than to scare us. So they're criminals, basically. So that's why I took those two words and put them together, mashed them together, and came up with the Cryptidnals.
Oh, I love it. And so I was looking a little bit at your Indiegogo. So it's like the cryptids are the protectors. And they got to fight the Tulpas, who are trying to wreck shop, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah, the cryptids, of course, nobody believes in them. But the Tulpas, it seems like everyone is believing in them now. And those are the cyberspace entities that have come into being as of late, recently, back through the 90s with the Black-Eyed Kids and then the Rake. And of course, the Slender Man. I use quotations when I say Slender Man because I always thought the Slender Man story was kind of weak. So we kind of pumped it up a little bit. And the name of the big bad is called El Ñango, which is a little bit hard to pronounce for myself as well. But he's kind of like the Slender Man with a purpose, rather than standing in the woods in a three-piece suit with tendrils. There's a purpose to him.
Okay.
That's awesome. Now here I just want to run down the list quickly. So the list of the cryptids. The heroes of the book. Who do we got in there?
Well, I guess they're anti-heroes. They're not really heroes because, of course, everyone's like, oh, they're monsters. But it's very monster-centric. The human aspect of the book is very much played down, even though some of these cryptids look like humans. We got the de facto leader, which is Raydron, the daughter of the original Spring Hill Jack. Okay. But she goes by the name Spring Hill Jack now. We have the Man Dog, which is a local legend here where I'm from in El Paso. It's a cursed Texas Ranger that carries these two spectral pistols that can destroy monsters, but at the same time, he reverts back to human. And if he dies as a human, he's damned for eternity to hell. Ooh. So that's his little story. And this is all based on research that I've been doing over the years on all these cryptids that I've chosen to kind of lead the team, I guess. We also have La Llorona, which is a big favorite around the borderland and more Latin America parts. But she's always been treated as a villain, a monster. And I'm pretty sure you guys have seen La Llorona movie that came out, I think, like 2 years ago.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, and she was treated like, she's a boogeyman, Mexican boogeyman, whatever. And I always thought that she got a bum rap, so I wanted to kind of redeem her and give her a backstory where, she's just not this villainous murdering mother. There's actually a reason for everything, and this is like her redemption tale. So she's actually treated like a hero in the book. And then also we have Kid Cthulhu. Everybody loves him too. He's Cthulhu, but he's trapped in the body of a 7-year-old boy. And the story in the Cryptidnals, explains how that comes to be. We have some other characters that are off of the main page. We have the Goat Man, the Denton, Texas Goat Man. We also have Quetzalcoatl, the reincarnation of the Mexican or Aztec god Quetzalcoatl. Okay. And she's a 15-year-old girl. and a few other cryptids that we have sprinkled amongst in there. Of course, we got our werewolves, we got our vampires, all the standbys, all that stuff. And, and Mothman. I tried to jam pack as many cryptids as I loved into the book. There's even a jackalope in there. That's how,
Wow.
we went in there.
But no Bigfoot?
Yes, Bigfoot. Poor Bigfoot, man. I don't want to give away too much. Actually, I will give away a little bit. So I have issues with Bigfoot, but the way that Bigfoot has always been treated, he's like this gentle beast. He's a guardian, forest guardian. He's very revered by the Native Americans. So something happens where Bigfoot, they're enthralled by the El Ñango, and he starts causing this havoc with the Bigfoot species and using them for his own evil gain. So in the story, Bigfoot is actually kind of caught in the middle of this war of monsters, where he's a reluctant participant, serving the evil chapter of the book rather than serving the good. So.
Wow.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, so far it sounds like such a fun read with the characters you have in there, and also now I need to research Mandog, the sheriff.
The Mandog.
Okay. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. Plus, I think it's a great character. I saw a couple panels that you had. And by the way, the artist that you have working on your book,
Yeah.
it looks great. So let him know that we said it's killer. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have him chained to the desk, like drawing these pages, and every single page is just like phenomenal. He turns in new pages, and we're like, oh my god. There's a scene in the book that he just finished drawing with the Smiledog. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Smiledog, like legend or whatever. It's like an internet legend, also part of the Tulpas. And those pages are just like killer pages, and we're like, man, we could show these, and we probably will like later on down the road. But for right now, we're like, man, this guy is he's going crazy. His name is Dario Rodriguez. He's been drawing comics for quite some time. He's also from Mexico. But he's a muralist, a sculptor. He draws comics. He does a bunch of everything.
Wow.
And we just love what he's doing right now.
Yeah, his work it looks amazing. Now we got the kind of some of the anti-heroes that are going against the Tulpas. And what's interesting is the Tulpas, a listener just recommended that we do an episode on the Tulpas.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And and like you said, you have the Black-Eyed Kids as a villain, Slender Man. I used air quotes for you. And a couple other ones. And, I never thought about the Black-Eyed Kids as being Tulpas.
Yeah.
But I like how you're using them in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory about the Black-Eyed Kids because, like I said, I've been doing the research. It seems like forever, but I've always I've had a lot of encounters growing up that kind of drove me to finally do this story, like as a very, very little small child, and growing through adulthood. I didn't see La Llorona, but I guess encountered what would pass for La Llorona, and that kind of just like got everything moving when I was 12 years old. And I'll tell you that story real quick right now, but so I've seen that, and then my parents, when I lived growing up, it was a very negative atmosphere, and it was just like a vortex of negativity. So all this negative energy drew shadow people like crazy.
Wow.
Growing up, shadow people were just like people that lived with me practically, because they were all over the house, and that's just a whole other podcast probably right there,
Oh my
man.
gosh.
For sure.
Yeah.
So all this stuff went into forming this passion that I have for this type of genre, for the stories and for the legends and stuff. And I've just been doing research on them. And the Black-Eyed Kids are very recent. I think they just started in the 90s, but I started going back further and finding more stories that weren't as, not so much popular, but they weren't picked up as much. And my theory on the Black-Eyed Kids, and I've always shared this with everybody. I want to know what you guys think. My theory is Black-Eyed Kids are the modern Nosferatu, because if you know the Nosferatu legend, they're vampires that want to drain your energy. They want to be allowed to do it, so they always ask you to let me into your home. You have to invite them in, and then something horrible happens to them, and they always seem to appear like in desolate areas. You don't see them just right off the bat, and then once you encounter them, they have this like tremendous urge to make you accept them, but at the same time they incite a lot of fear in you, where you're kind of like revulsed by what you're looking at. And what better vehicle than to use children for their evil purposes and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. I'm like, Ray, maybe you should just be on the show.
I know. I don't think that theory ever came up when we were talking about
no,
them.
I think we were like aliens. I think was one of the theories we were kicking around.
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read about that. There was this one back in the 50s. There was this one man. I think it was two men, but the one man that I remember, his name was Indrid Cold or something like that.
Yep.
That I always thought that was kind of like an offshoot or a preamble to like the black-eyed kid phenomenon because it was kind of like similar creepiness.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I like it. And we thought he was a census taker from outer space since he kept asking that one guy, like, hey, where do you live? What do you do for a living?
Right.
So yeah, our theories are not that good.
No.
Now, the book, how many is it? Several issues, or is it one big graphic novel?
Originally, I wanted to do several issues. I wanted it to be a continuing series, but I couldn't afford to do like continue and be doing all these campaigns for it. So we finally agreed on a number. It's 132 pages. It's one graphic novel, and it's all self-contained. Of course, we leave ourselves a little bit of wiggle room at the end to see if we can continue it down the road because Dario takes a long time to draw. I mean, if you've seen the pages, there's a reason for it. But it's 132 pages, and it's self-contained in one shot.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't wait to pick it up. It sounds and looks amazing. Now, how long have you been writing comic books?
I started writing comic books in high school. My first love was poetry. I loved writing poetry. That's where I came in. And I don't know if you guys ever read Sandman by Neil Gaiman. He wrote American Gods, stuff like that. That's where I came in with as far as how comics could be art forms in the style of like poetry, because I always thought the Sandman was like this long poem that Gaiman wrote through pictures. And I started writing comics for myself, started writing comics with other friends of mine that I met along the way, but it always turned into superheroes. It always turned into like, who was going to be the next Batman or Spider-Man. And I always wanted to get away from that. I wanted to touch more on the literature aspect of writing, all this like, and I guess what's the word I would look for? Like antiquified? Is that a word? I don't know. All this old style of writing, like the Penny Dreadfuls, stuff that was written like Poe, all that other stuff that was like horror, like gothic horror type stuff. And my first actual professional submission was to heavy metal, and a friend of mine and I submitted, and we got accepted, and we got published through heavy metal for about 3 issues.
Wow.
Back in the late 2000s. And we just kept going from there. But I've been doing nothing but indie books. I've never gotten back into doing mainstream, because it feels weird doing mainstream or trying to get into mainstream knowing that your stuff has been in heavy metal. Heavy metal was, like a top tier publisher for me growing up. Like I could never be in heavy metal. And to be able to publish our story in there, I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to do mainstream anymore. I can do like other stuff. But yeah, indie books I've been doing for like the past 20 years, 20 plus.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, heavy metal was one of my favorite movies as a kid. That was like the midnight showing kind of movie in our town.
Yeah.
So we'd always try to sneak out and go check it out. Soundtrack's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I would go to, when they would have it here, they do the midnight showings of heavy metal. They do the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Faces of Death, all that stuff back in the day.
Now, and you also wrote some stuff for Gore Shriek.
Yes, for Gore Shriek. I'm waiting on that one right now. It was very recent. I wrote a Bigfoot story for Gore Shriek. An editor friend of mine, he needed someone to like fill space, and he asked me like, pitch me something off the top of your head. And I pitched him this story. I took the movie Red Dawn, from the 80s, and I put Bigfoot in it. And I pitched it to him. He's like, "Oh my God, how does that even work?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I got to figure it out." So I figured it out, and he got me an artist. And this story has been done for about the past year and a half. But because of, I guess, publishing issues, it's barely going to be coming out, I believe, next month. Oh, okay. And it's the newest Gore Shriek.
Oh, I can't wait to check that out. I met those guys with Rough House Publishing, Derek Rook. Met them up at Scaricon in Massachusetts.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
In fact, I think I have an issue of Gore Shriek somewhere. Okay. That's very cool. And it sounds like it would make an amazing movie also.
That's what I was thinking, too. When I pitched it, I was like, man, if I had Red Dawn, if I could do something with Red Dawn, I'd put Bigfoot in it and, just pit everybody against the monster. And the artist that drew it for me, his name is Jason Paolos. He's Australian. and he's drawn the Phantom and stuff like that for Australian comics. And I was very lucky to have him draw my story, and it's very much in the the essence of it is back like EC Comics type story, and that's how he drew it. So the panels are all formulated, and there's no big splash pages or anything like that. Everything is very compartmentalized. It's really, really cool. And I'm hoping that I get my comp copies very soon because I want to see what the end product looks like.
Oh, I love how you're like, oh, if I could I would put Bigfoot in this movie. You sound like me. I'd be like, oh, if I can make a movie like Clerks,
Right.
I'd put Bigfoot in it.
Right.
There you go.
Just working the counter. He's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Exactly.
Put Bigfoot in everything. That's awesome. That's very awesome. So, you had mentioned that you've done a boatload of research. How many years do you think you put in on the research? Just so because you said every character is extremely fleshed out.
Yes, every character is very much well-rounded. I wanted to have enough meat on there so each character could carry their own book if they spun out, or did something else on their own, or they guest starred in another indie book or something. I started working on this in 2016, and it was at first like a joke. My friend and I were driving around, and he's a professional comic book artist. And every time we'd hang out and we'd drive around or go somewhere, we'd always play this game where we would pitch ideas to each other, just back and forth, just to keep us sharp, to see what we could come up with on the spot. And I pitched him this idea. And to think about it now, it's like, wow, what the hell was I thinking? I said, yeah, let's have these monsters, these cryptids, be like undercover agents that work for the government, and they're sent off to distant lands to retrieve artifacts for the government, like the Spear of Destiny or the Crown of Christ and stuff like that. And they got to answer to someone that's in the government that controls them, and it'll be the Loch Ness monster. And he's like, "Oh wow, that's awesome!" And we just started throwing off of each other like that. And now thinking about it, I'm like, how would I even have pulled that off? I don't even know. But doing the research for the characters, I started formulating this whole other story. And then I got really, really into the firefight between the military and the aliens back in the 70s in Dulce, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got really into that, and I started deep diving. I started watching the YouTube videos. I started doing all that stuff. And I was like, well, what really happened? What really did happen? And that's where the story originated from right there. It's like, well, how did they stop them? Because the military wouldn't have been enough for these Greys and stuff. And I said, the Cryptids. Cryptids showed up. They probably have some sort of agreement with the U.S. government or the military. They showed up and they saved the day. And that's where the Cryptidnals really started fleshing out.
Cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I feel like your brain works kind of like mine, except yours gets a very serious path. And I'm like, yeah, no, let's go back to Nessie being the boss. Because I could see Nessie in a suit and tie, all business. Big.
It's interesting that you say that, because there's a book out there that's kind of like that. It's called Cryptid Adventures, and I bought the book too, and it's just exactly like you're discussing it. Like Nessie's out there, they're the boss, and then I think the Jersey Devil, and I forgot who else, Chupacabras, all these other cryptids are working for Nessie to try and control alien population or something like that.
Oh my god, I gotta look that up.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Now you have the Kickstarter going.
Yes, it's Indiegogo actually.
Indiegogo. My bad. Indiegogo.
No.
What kind of perks you got?
Right now we have quite a few perks. We're heading into our stretch goals right now. The main one that we're pushing, it's called the Cryptid Hunter package, and I think there's 2 left. So some people have been really interested in that. So we have 3 different covers for the book. There's the first cover, which is the regular Wendigo skull, Bigfoot holding the Wendigo skull cover, that drawn by Dario. And then we have the second variant cover, is drawn by Raymond Gay. This guy is up and coming right now in the comic book industry. He's drawn a lot of variant covers for The Last Ronin, for IDW, for the Ninja Turtles and stuff. And he drew this one badass cover for the Battle of Nightmare Hall. That's what we call the cover. And it has the Mothman crucified on a tree, and it has a bunch of dead cryptids all around him and stuff. Really, really cool cover, really dynamic. So we have that cover. And then we have the third cover, which is drawn by Aurelio Mazzara. He worked for Marvel, and he does a few indie books here and there, but he was the concept artist for the movie Psycho Goreman that just came out a few months ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
And he's a good friend of mine, and I asked him to draw a cover, and he drew this one cover. It has La Llorona, and it has Spring Hill Jack on the cover, and it has El Ñango behind him with all these tentacles and stuff.
Oh,
So that's
wow.
the third cover. So we have that in the package. And then apart from that, we have a Man-Dog supplemental book, which is a full-size comic. And it gives you the story, the backstory of the Man-Dog, how it came to be, drawn by artist David Olivares. And he's one of the artists for 6x6 Comics who I work with that originally drew the Man-Dog story. We have that. And then we have the Creature Apocryphal, which is the sketchbook for Dario. And it comes with a sketch cover that he actually draws for you as well, fully rendered sketch. And then the cool stuff that I think is like really, really unique to the Kickstarter or to the Indiegogo is we have these Polaroids. And what the Polaroids are is fully rendered images of these creature sightings or monster moments, as we call them. Like, oh my God, someone took a Polaroid of Bigfoot in the woods and you can't really tell what it is, but you can. And along with that, there's an MP3. And the MP3 describes the scene, just gives you some backstory on what you're looking at and what the creature is. And that's 12 Polaroids with 12 MP3s. And we have a cassette tape. And the cassette tape, we were on another stream, and this one guy was saying that the cassette tape is cursed, so nobody should play. It's an actual cassette tape, and it's kind of like in the vein of Evil Dead. You know, when Ash goes in, he plays the reel-to-reel, and he starts listening to all that stuff. So that's what the cassette tape is like, and it pretty much tells you the story also that's included in MP3 in case you don't have a cassette tape player to play the tape. And of course, a cassette tape rewinder, which is a pencil. So that's what's in the package itself, the main package that we have. And of course, after that, we have like the variant covers and all this other stuff. And right now, we're unlocking the stretch goals for the campaign. So everyone that backed the book at the very basic tier, which is just the book, for $25, they're starting to get add-ons for free. They've gotten, I think we've unlocked 2 sets of Polaroids so far, and the Man-Dog, no, not the Man-Dog, the sketchbook. We've unlocked that. So we still have a few more tiers to go to unlock everything. So even if you contribute at the very bottom tier, you're going to get the whole package. You're going to get a very immersive experience as far as the story is concerned.
Very cool.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to, what do you call it? It's not subscribe. Whatever it's called. I'm going to buy one of those
to
packages.
back it or whatever.
Yeah.
Back. Back your Indiegogo.
There you go.
Now, what was anything that went in the decision to go with Indiegogo over Kickstarter?
I think it was the Indiegogo. When you start a campaign, if you don't make your quota, you still get something out of it. Kickstarter, I think, is all or nothing. Mm-hmm. So if you don't make it, you don't get anything. And Indiegogo allows you to take whatever you make and use it, for your campaign, for your project or whatever you're funding. So that was more the reason to go with Indiegogo than anything else. And also to add, I think in Kickstarter, once you're in and you're set, you can't add anything else to the campaign. And we want to add more perks as we go along. There's talk about doing some custom action figures. There's stuff about doing some other stuff for the campaign. So we want to add more perks as we go along.
Cool.
That's fantastic. Because I have a book that's being penciled
Right.
right now, and I'm kicking around the idea, doing a crowdfunding campaign for it. And I was like, do you do Kickstarter or Indiegogo? I'm not sure, but it sounds like the Indiegogo could be the way to go.
What I would recommend to you is start with Indiegogo, have your campaign, fund it, and then whatever you want to do with the rest of it, go to Kickstarter. I mean, nobody says you can't do both, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're thinking about, because a lot of people have been asking for the book in Spanish. So we might do a Kickstarter just to fund the book in Spanish to get someone to translate it and then release it in. Oh, that's another thing too. Indiegogo is only available in the States and internationally, but not in Mexico.
Oh.
So Kickstarter is available in Mexico.
Huh. Okay. Well, it looks like you're hitting it. The book's going to get made. When do you think it will be out? Like if I back it today, so December, I'd be able to read it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
hey,
definitely.
That's great.
Cool.
We just fulfilled our previous campaign, and was very important to us to get that book out to everyone that backed it before we even started another campaign. So it's going to happen. It's going to get made, and it's going to be sooner than later. If not December, hopefully before that, and we're going to get it out to everybody, and they'll have their book in hand before we even attempt to do anything else.
Fantastic. Cool. 2 more questions, and then I'll let you go. I'm sure you're a busy man. Well, it sounds like an extremely busy person. For any listener out there, and myself too, that dabbles with writing comics, is there any piece of advice that maybe you learned along the way that you could, drop on us to keep us inspired to keep going?
Man, like I've gotten a lot of like techniques from everybody and stuff. The only thing is that I can really, really recommend is write what you know. Write what you know. Don't try it. I mean, you can always do the research and stuff, but experience helps immensely. So if you've experienced something that no one else has, that's your in right there. Write what you know. Don't be afraid to take risks with your writing. If you want to write something about, there was one comic book writer, I forgot his name. I think it was Vaughn, that wanted to write about the White House and how there is like an emergency room at the very bottom in the basement or something, in case like World War III broke out. That's where the president would go, and he didn't know anything about it. So he immersed himself in the knowledge. He did the research, and he actually went out there to the White House to try and get a tour so he could kind of figure out how the layout was of the whole place. But he recommended that if you're going to write something that you don't know about, try to get as much information about it as possible and immerse yourself in that. If your passion is writing, then by all means play up your passion and get all the information that you need in order to produce the story that you want to produce. So write what you know, and don't be afraid to write at all, stuff that you want to experiment with.
Awesome. Thanks for the advice. And speaking of experiences, maybe you can leave us with one little paranormal experience you had. You mentioned you basically just lived with shadow people who were all around you. Is there anything, any tale you can tell us?
Oh man, there's so many. Hopefully I can come back at some point in time and tell you more stories. But
sure.
Yeah.
The one that always sticks in my head is my dad passed away a few years ago, and my mom, she's in a nursing home now. But before he passed away, my mom had kind of like, I don't know, I guess she had like a breakdown, and she divided the house in half. So we called it the West Wing. My mom lived in the West Wing, and my dad lived in the front of the house. And they wouldn't talk. They got to that point in their lives where they weren't talking. So I was living, at apartments, and I would go visit them just to make sure that they were okay. And like I said before, I had seen a lot of stuff. I had experienced a lot of stuff, but this one is kind of like sticks in my head. So this one day I went to visit my dad. I went early in the morning to go visit him. And I asked him, hey, is my mom here? And he's like, no, she's not here. Her car isn't here. Okay, whatever. So I sat with him, and I was talking to him, and he asked me like, hey, did you by any chance show up here at 3 a.m. last night? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I heard knocking on the door. And I thought I was dreaming, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't. I heard knocking on the door, and I went and I opened the door, and this black shadow person came into the house, and I started yelling at it to leave. Get out of my house, get out of my house, get out of my house. And it wouldn't leave, and it followed me around the house. And I finally got tired. And this is the part that like weirds me out, because I'm like, how can you even get to this point? He's like, I finally got tired and I went to bed. And as I was lying in bed, I was yelling at it at the door, like, get out of my house. And I couldn't take it anymore, and I fell asleep. and I was like, what are you even talking about? And he's like, yeah, I heard really loud knocking, like banging, like someone was trying to bust the door down. That's what I heard. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And he's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And that was it. Conversation over. Okay, whatever. Wow. I went back to visit a few days later, and my dad wasn't there. My mom was there. And I went to the back, I went through the back to the West Wing to go visit my mother. And I was like, hey, what's going on? I was talking to her for a little bit, make sure she was okay. And like I said, they wouldn't talk. They got to that point in their lives where they were just like, they just coexisted, but they wouldn't talk. And my mom was like, hey, did you by any chance come over to the house a few nights ago, about 3-4 in the morning? I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I don't know. I heard your dad yelling, but before I heard your dad yelling, there was this loud banging on the door, like someone was trying to get into the house. And I thought it was you. But I didn't get up to go look. I just heard the banging, and I heard your dad yelling, and I just went back to sleep. So that stuck in my head, and I'm like, what the hell did they experience, But then again, they were so negative to each other that it could have been anything.
Wow.
Yeah, just getting tired of and going to bed. The shadow man's like, oh, I guess I give up. He doesn't care anymore.
Exactly. And then my dad was the type of guy, he's old school, like super old school. Like he had a molar issue one time, and he pulled it out with a pair of pliers. That's how old school he was. but like to doubt him on stuff like that, I wouldn't doubt him, because he was the kind of guy who's like, yeah, you know, your word is your bond. You make sure that you're a man about things. You keep your word, all this other stuff. You know, you don't lie just for the hell of lying. And when he told me that, I was like, man, I got to take this seriously, because he witnessed something. He saw something.
Right.
And
well, thank you for sharing that with us.
I know.
Ray, this has been so much fun. I cannot wait to read your book.
Yes.
Now,
thank you guys so much.
Tell everybody where they can learn more about you and all your comic books.
Cool. Yes, if you want to follow us, we're 6x6 Comics. We're on all the social platforms, Twitter, you know, Facebook, Instagram. 6x6 Comics, just like it sounds, 656 in comics. And also Cryptidnals is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And we also have a TikTok. It's called the Cryptidnals TikTok. And we show, like, you know, stuff for the book and also little clips and stuff that I've collected on the TikTok page or whatever you call it in 60 seconds. So you can join us there as well.
Very cool. And I'll put links in the show notes for everybody. Ray, thank you so much. I'll send my comics done. I'll send you a PDF. I'd love for you to read it.
Yes.
Yeah. Feel free to critique it. And I did write it, what I know, because it kind of stars us. It's like a what if.
Oh, really?
So kind of what if.
What is it about? If you don't mind me asking, I'm interested. What is it about?
So it kind of stemmed from, I got this email from a listener inviting us down to this cabin in the woods in West Virginia.
Oh,
and
I'm already getting chills.
Seemed like he seemed like a nice guy and everything, but I watched far too many horror movies. So my brain just kept spinning. I think we were at the pub having a beer, and I'm just like, oh yeah, what if this is what would happen if we did go? And then it built out into the story. Again, playing off some horror movie stuff, Bigfoot, and some secrets I don't want to spill.
Yep.
Because, got to get the Shyamalan twist in there, too.
Yeah, I get you.
So I think it's fun. But again, it's one of those things, like, I'm just going to go for it. I'll self-publish it. And that way, nobody can tell me I can't be a comic book writer.
Right.
So.
Of course not. You can be anything you want to be, I didn't start off being a comic book writer. I started being a poet. And I got into comics as I went along. So by all means, man, I'm very interested in what you have to say. So let me know or send me the PDF and I'll check it out for sure.
I definitely will. Thank you. Oh, and maybe sometime we'll meet face to face because we have a friend in El Paso.
Yep.
And we keep talking about flying down to spend some days with her and maybe even shooting up to Roswell.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No?
I haven't been to Roswell in a while, so man, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys need to come down here and let me know, and I'll meet you. We'll go have some Chico's Tacos, which is like the famous thing to do.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Cool.
Ray, thank you so much. And like we say around here, if it's not weird,
it's not worth checking out.
Exactly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.